Hey there, I'm Jill Allen, and this is Find Your Fierce, the show designed for women to discover your fierce, unlock an unstoppable mindset, build unbreakable courage, and completely transform how you show up every single day. Each week, I will bring ideas, methods, and strategies that will inspire you to step into your greatness and live life on purpose. Let's be fit, fierce, and unstoppable. Hey there, gang. Welcome to Find Your Fierce. I'm Jill Allen, and I'm so excited that we are back together this week with episode 182. And the best part is that we have someone pretty special as we continue the Hike, Live, Explore series. She is with us today. Been wanting to actually create this series for a while that focuses on us living life out on the trails, living, exploring, and to share stories about life on the trail, everyday life, the challenges, the setbacks, but also stories of perseverance. And that is what this series is all about. And we have Sydney with us. But before we go any further, I love that you're here listening in and spending time with me. I have a couple of updates to share with you. Set Fire is still available. And if you have not snagged a copy yet, go do so on Amazon. And then also the Fall Trailblazer Challenge is kicking off on October 1st. And you can join us. And I'm super excited about this as this challenge is designed to help you get outside, unplug, recharge, and explore the beauty of nature. And the goal with this is we're going to hike a total of either 30, 40, or 50 miles on the trails in the month of October. You pick the miles. And for the extra boost, we're going to throw in the challenge of a minimum of 2 new locations. So I know you're getting wild and crazy here, but mix it up this time around. And so whether you're a beginner or a seasoned hiker, the Trailblazer Challenge is for you. So lace up your hiking boots and hit the trails. Registration is open. Go to jillallencoaching.com. Okay, so are you ready? I know I am, so let's dive in. I mentioned that we have a special guest with us. Sydney Bird is here, and she's actually on the trail as we speak, as we are recording this. So if you get any glitches or setbacks, just stick with us because we're hammering through, talk about dedication, and I'm excited that she's here to share her story and take time from hiking today to talk with us. Sydney, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much. I know. I mean, it is amazing to see the trees behind you, you in like hiking gear and just taking this time out because I know service is kind of sketchy on the trail. So I can't thank you enough. So tell us, I mean, your family has been friends with our family for years. Our brothers are besties. And so I've
Yes.
kind of watched you grow up a little bit
Mhm.
and you graduated from college this spring. And
Mhm.
you're literally on a different path than
Yeah.
what you thought. Tell us a little bit about what made you decide to hike the Appalachian Trail a week after you graduated.
So I decided the summer of COVID, and it was mostly because I felt like I needed something to look forward to after I graduated, and I was searching for certainty because I was realizing that all of my life it was just the next chapter of school, and I was feeling very overwhelmed and not ready. And so I was looking for something to strengthen my mind and something empowering. And so I really Googled, I'm pretty sure I Googled how to get mentally tough or something like that. And hiking kind of came up. And then as I looked more into it, I found the Appalachian Trail. And then as I looked into the Appalachian Trail, I was kind of seeing how much people talked about how it empowered them, they felt so much stronger mentally and emotionally, and that the community of on the trail was just amazing. And that was one of my other reasons because I had also just decided to go into the forensic science field, criminal justice, and I was wanting to be exposed to the best of people kind of before I was surrounded by the worst of people because I didn't want to become jaded or I wanted to have that kind of good spot that I could know I could have within myself, and to always remember that remember the good in people, I guess. And so I decided then, and then it was 3 years from when I decided that I started the trail. And up until then, I'd hiked with family. I'd never gone on big backpacking trips before, and I'd never done it solo. So I went on two overnights and before I started this trip. And I mean, that's all I felt I had time for. I could only carve out those 2 weekends because I played college and tennis, or I played tennis in college. So my weekends were always pretty full. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of got into deciding to do the through hike.
I love it. I mean, that is the best question I think all of us could ask ourselves is how do we get mentally tough? I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
something that no one can take away from us. That is something that it will continue to grow. I think that's the best question. I think, if anything, from this podcast is that we all need to ask that question is how can we become mentally tough
Mm-hmm.
and take on hard things? Because here's the thing, if you wanted to do this in 2020 and what you graduated in 2023, I mean, you had 3 years. When did I got to ask this because I've never talked to your parents. When did you tell your parents that you were going to hike solo 2,200 miles? Heads up.
So I told them probably like 2 years before, but I don't think they registered it until the year before. And my mom will tell you she didn't believe it was going to happen until we were on the trail. So, and I mean, to me, I kind of, I don't know if it's, I told my mom it's the way she raised me, but I didn't really think anything of doing it solo because I've always, even in college, it was just, it felt so like freedom to do something on my own and not have the judgment, the opinions of anyone. I can make a decision and I could then just do the decision. And so I was excited to do it solo. And I wasn't scared because I knew I could handle it. I just had to kind of prepare in a different way. And I've been thinking about it a lot, kind of like, I don't think, I mean, I knew it was 2,200 miles long and I knew the average time was like 4 to 6 months. But I think the way that I think of things, it didn't really, I don't know, I've learned a lot about perspective as well, like
Okay.
hiking this trail, because you could look at it the perspective of it's 2,200 miles and that's very daunting and very like, it seems unfathomable. But the way I just knew if I hiked every day, I would eventually
Yeah.
get to 200 miles.
Yeah. I
So,
think it's just amazing. I'm sitting here talking to you. I'm hanging on to every word because, that is just something that has been creeping in like more and more into our heart in terms of taking on a challenge like that. Cause I'm always up for
mhm.
challenges.
Yeah.
So it's super inspiring. I know you mentioned, how you love grabbing a hold of taking on something like that and how empowering it is and not to worry about other people's opinions and judgment.
Hmm.
It's awesome that you said that because there's a lot of outside noise and external, like what the world places on us in terms of
Yeah.
expectations and the priorities and the to-do lists. And, I mean, as a culture that we're expected to, go to school,
Hmm.
when you graduate, you go to college. And then when you
Hmm.
graduate there, you get a job and then you work until it's time to retire, if
Hmm.
that date ever comes. You totally like took on, something like that might not have been the expected
Hmm.
for that. I mean, so obviously I'm going to assume you don't regret it, do you?
No, not at all. It was actually, yeah, this was, and I knew the moment I decided that it was the best thing for me. And then there was a lot of, like I said, noise in those 3 years of just everyone having a different reaction to me telling them. And even having a different reaction once I told them I was doing it solo, which was an
Yeah.
interesting experience altogether. But as soon as, yeah, no, this has been the best decision I've ever made. And it's something that I knew was for the best.
Mhm.
And then it really has been exactly what I needed after college.
Yeah. I mean, talk a little bit about like the perspective change for that. I mean, like obviously you're living in a very minimal lifestyle.
Hmm.
Talk to us a little bit about that. Share your experiences. I mean, what you started with, what you've downsized to, what you love the most by not having all the things.
Yeah. So I guess like the perspective change, I was thinking about it in that like when I'm on trail, like all I can do is go forward or stop. I guess the biggest feeling that's gone is I never ever feel like I'm doing anything wrong. And I can't because there
Mm.
is no wrong way to like hike. And if you do something different, and out here, especially in like the through hiking community, it's so much more just curiosity. Like everyone has different gear, everyone does food differently, everyone has everything differently. And it's like just curious to be like, so what do you have kind of and then you kind of instead of comparing you're just like, oh, that's interesting. And then sometimes you kind of take from them like something like, oh, I think I might want to try that, or oh, that's actually a lot lighter, that's a good, kind of. And
Mhm.
it's just more of a conversation, and that part, like, yeah. And then just the never feeling, I didn't realize how much I felt like I was doing, just constantly, like, I honestly is part of the reason I did the trail, because I felt like I was just doing life wrong, and I felt like I wasn't prepared, or I wouldn't be able to do it the right way because of like how my personality is, how my brain works. I
Mhm.
just never quite fit into what people would always be expecting. And but yeah, out here it's like my only purpose is to just to truly enjoy my day, and everything in between is up to me. It's just like I can't even describe how freeing it is to know I'm not doing it wrong, and that there is no way to do it wrong.
You're truly living life
Yeah.
and building relationships with the people that I know that you did meet. Like you're
Hmm.
definitely not alone. And I want to talk a little bit about the connections that you made. But I know when you say like, you can't do anything wrong out there on the
Hmm.
trail,
Hmm.
you know, you even started a little bit different because, I'm in
Hmm.
groups for the AT, and I love, hearing people's stories, but, people talk about southbound and northbound and where, there's a huge mass and bubble that starts at Springer Mountain in Georgia and hikes all the way up to Mount Katahdin in Maine, or vice
Hmm.
versa. You actually started smack dab in the middle
Hmm.
and kind of did your own thing. You went north first, and then you're heading south now. Where, you know, obviously that was because of your, graduation schedule, things like that, but it seems to be working out for you.
Yeah, it's funny too. It's more of a new thing, apparently. The book that I saw when I was planning this, I thought it was those three options, and like the start dates were set in stone or whatever.
Ah,
But apparently the flip flop is what I'm doing, and it's more of a new thing that the ATC is like promoting, so that it takes, like you said, takes away from that bubble and kind of helps the forest, and it doesn't get as trodden down and everything. But yeah, when I meet a Nobo, or like the
yeah.
Northbounders, they're like, "Oh man, that's the way to do it." If I ever did it again, I'd do a flip flop because apparently, like said, I decided to do it because of when I graduated college. But the big advantage to it is that I get the north in the summer months when it's hot,
Mhm.
and I kind of miss the bug season, the black fly season. And
Okay.
then I'm in the south during the fall when it's the temp. So
Gorgeous.
I kind of have the ideal temperature. So excluding Vermont getting flooded, um, I kind of had, it's like the best weather as much as you can
Yeah.
get the best weather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm liking the flip flop. I love that's what you did. You were actually, I don't know if you know this, or I guess I messaged you, and I
Mhm.
love to have service still on the trail in and
Yeah.
out. You were in the White Mountains like a week
Yes.
before our backpacking trip.
Hmm.
So to see your photos of,
Hmm.
and I know you stayed in a hut. Which hut did you stay in?
I passed through Mitzpah,
Okay.
and I stayed in the dungeon of the Lakes of the Cloud.
Oh
And
gosh.
then, did you see the dungeon?
I did not see that. No, I
Okay.
didn't know that there was a dungeon. Is that in the basement?
It's like, so if you went out and then back around the hut, there's like this door. It's just a door, and you open the door, and it's like a 6 by 10
Oh my God.
tiny room, and the floor is wet cement, and there's just six bunks in there, and it's literally a dungeon.
Oh my, no, I did not. when we came down off, and that was probably my favorite part of that
Mhm,
backpacking trip, and I know you've experienced it. We actually
mhm,
had that little ridge or mountain right before, but we came off. We saw the clouds from or the lake below, and
mhm,
then all of a sudden the clouds moved and we saw the
mm.
house. And I remember the
Yes.
most gorgeous scene. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And we climbed
Yeah.
down and experienced. Now, I did see for the through hikers, they would leave food out. So, guys, we're talking about the AMC huts. They're on the presidential range, they're in the White Mountains, and you can go and actually stay and experience, but and hike to cabin to cabin. But the through hikers would come in and then they would leave like leftover food and things from that. And we saw a bunch of through hikers coming in and chowing down on some of the soup and
Yes.
pastries and all the things. Were you able to snag one?
Oh, yes. So it works really well because so the whole white section is about 55 miles, but it cuts every through hiker's mileage down in half because it's just such intense hiking. So there's no resupply. It's really difficult to get a resupply in those 55 miles. So it's very helpful to, yeah, stop by a hut. And they also, if there's any leftovers from dinner, you can get that there. And then there's an option to do a work for stay if they'll
Okay.
have two spots available at each hut. So if you get there after 4 and there's an open spot, then you can like clean after dinner or whatever, work, and then you get a spot on the living room floor
Awesome.
and for the night. But yeah, the food was definitely a plus.
Yeah. What did you do for refuel? Or like kind of walk us through that setup because, people who are listening to this, they might not be up for the AT at this point, but they might be up for a 3 to 5 day backpacking trip. What was your gear like? How much did you pack? And when would you go in for like the supplies and a refuel?
Yeah, so everyone does food a little differently. I was actually my parents, once they were on board, they decided they were gonna send me packages. So I just send them the address of like where I'll be every 3 to 4 days, and
Okay.
then they'll send me a package. They'll send a package there. And other through hikers, or if you're just doing a section, you could either send a box ahead of yourself. Say you're doing a 3 or 4 day hike, you're going to end up in this place, or halfway through, you're going to be around this area. You can send a box ahead of time, or other through hikers, the more traditional way is you just stop into town and you kind of just get the food you need from a gas station or a Dollar General or if a Walmart if the town is big enough. And but as for like what the food is, so for lunch I cold soak ramen and rice, which
Okay.
is so I have ramen and rice in a Ziploc bag, and then in the morning I'll put water in, and then by lunchtime it's cooked or cold
Yeah.
soaked. And sometimes I'll also add mashed potatoes to that if I'm really hungry. And then I'll put tuna in at lunch, tuna into that for like the flavor. And
Yeah.
then that's what I eat for lunch. And then I also have what's the flatbread with honey and
Oh, like a tortilla
yeah,
or
like tortilla shell. Yeah. I
okay.
have a
Yeah.
tortilla shell with honey and peanut butter.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, you can't go
so,
wrong with that. And that's
yeah.
somewhat light to carry.
hmm
Mhm.
Yeah.
How heavy is your pack?
So, oh man. So when I like after I resupply, it's probably like 40 some pounds, and then it probably gets down to like 30, which
Okay.
is that's a heavier pack. Yeah.
Yeah, that is heavy. So when you started off, did you have to send anything back home? Did you like get rid of anything that like, oh man, I don't really need this,
Yeah.
like I thought?
Um, I did change my water filtration, how
Okay.
I did that because it was a gravity filled water thing, and so it was like a mini Sawyer, and it was gravity, and then I had a 3 liter collection thing for the dirty water,
Okay.
and it would take me like 30 minutes, which when I started in Pennsylvania and it was in a drought at that time, it worked because I would collect like 3 liters at each place and carry it. But water is very probably one of the heavier things that you end up carrying because it's about 2 pounds a liter. And so, as I said, like I was talking to other through hikers and like seeing what they did. And so there's a Sawyer squeeze, and that's much more, it's quicker because I was taking like 30 minutes, and a Sawyer squeeze will do a liter in maybe like 3 minutes.
Okay. It's a little bit more
And
efficient.
so, yeah, yeah. And yeah, so I'd say if you're going on a shorter hike, like a bladder, and then a Sawyer squeeze would do well. But as a through hiker, you don't want to carry too much. You're trying to carry the least that you can, essentially.
Right.
And so, yeah, I did send at home that big 3 liter thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I just have a Sawyer squeeze collectible for the
Okay.
for the dirty water.
Most critical. I mean, you need your
Yes.
water. When you're
Yeah.
out there. So I know you mentioned at the beginning that you had not like you haven't really specifically trained for this and you haven't done anything long besides a couple
Yeah.
overnights. What
Mhm.
was your mileage like at the beginning compared to now?
Yeah, I started off like averaging 10 miles a day, and I'm quintessentially an overachiever, which that was also something that I had to work on because
Yeah.
I was be like a weekend, I was like a week and a half in, and I was like, I feel like I should be doing 15 miles by now. And then I did go like 3 days of 15 miles, and my feet just like exploded. Like, okay, not literally, but like I
Yeah.
got like 4 blisters on one foot, and I could barely walk. And
Gosh.
I remember thinking, like, am I just being a wuss, or do I actually need to like slow down?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I decided to go into town that day when I hadn't planned initially, and I kind of got blister stuff. I reassessed everything and decided, yeah, I need to go back down to averaging 10 miles a day. And like again with that like comparison thing, like technically like no one is expecting anything of me. No one's like there's no accomplishment I'm trying to get, but I was still putting it on myself that I was like doing it wrong, or that there was a certain way to do it. And so that was definitely a curve of like just doing what was best for my body, and
Mm.
that was right. That was just the right
Yeah.
thing to do. And then another like aspect of that specific time, it really, so with the trail just being so linear, it takes away, like in life I feel like you're like, oh yeah, that was the right thing because this happened because of that, but there's all these other factors. You can't be for sure that that was what caused that next thing. But out here it's so linear. It's like every decision you make, you kind of see the benefits of it or the effect of it a few days later, or you can legitimately say this would not have happened had I not made that decision. And
Yeah.
so like my decision to go into town and like kind of give myself a little break, I then ran into 2 other hikers that I wouldn't have because my mileage would have put me a little bit off, and we ended up hiking together, Reset and Milkman. We ended up hiking together for like a while, and Reset, we were kind of all in the same of we're pushing a little too hard. And so yeah, and like that day, the next day, like the literal next day, I was hiking with them, which I not would not have been
Mm.
otherwise. And we got to, Reset had heard from someone in town about this like cave formation that was a few miles out. And so we all got to like go caving essentially, which was so cool. And I would have never known about that. I would have just,
Yeah.
gone, seen the view and like kept going. And so just like being in that right spot because of a decision I made that was like best for me.
Yeah.
That's just been this whole trail. And it's just giving me that confidence of I do know what's best for me, kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Well, what I'm hearing, like when you shared that story, and is how you've learned the process of slowing down. I mean, we have been
Mhm.
programmed to go and go and go and do and strive and, climb the ladder or just, pile 10 pounds in a 5 pound bag and
Yeah.
just do all the things. And I just keep hearing when you share your story is that you've learned to slow down each day. I mean, do you feel that impact or?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And like I could even like was noticing like there's a thing with like you start doing like trail math, and like trying to get to a place and like see, well, if I know this is my average pace, then I can get there by this time. And like, blah, blah, when you start kind of, for me, I guess, when I start feeling that too much, then I like definitely, I'm like, whoa, like, there's no rush here. Like, I don't need to be doing these. I don't need to be going that fast. Like, I have a loose plan and where I want to be at a certain time. But like some days, my mom and I call it a sloth day. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just feeling like a sloth. And again, with how linear the trail is, you can see how it doesn't actually impact. It doesn't actually make that big a difference to just take a slow day. Like one time, I woke up, I was exhausted from the 2 days before, and I woke up at like 12:30, and I could only make it 7 miles, and I was like struggling. I was like, and I just felt like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so behind. Like I'm not gonna get to Katani in time. And like all of this, but then I like needed that because a few days later I did more mileage because I was rested, and my average ended up being the same. Like,
Wow.
and it didn't affect anything, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I
yeah.
always say slow down to speed up. There's
Yeah.
so much that we need to slow down so we can even actually speed up that process of what we set out to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I am just so excited for you. I think this is just absolutely amazing. Tell us about, I mean, you already talked about the friends that you met, you went caving,
Hmm.
the connections. I know you made a point about that, the
Hmm.
connections that you've made on the trail and the community.
Hmm.
What do you have to say about that?
I think it's really awesome. Like, you meet someone on trail, and sometimes, like, the first question is, like, what brought you out here? And a lot of times, the answer to that is, like, very personal and it's very deep. And so it's like, you immediately have this like deep connection. It's not superficial. You're not asking what do you do. It's like, who's the person that you are that
Mm-hmm.
made you decide to do this. And it's just you're the only ones out here, and there's that connection. And it's really crazy. I'll see someone, one day, and then you may not have the same hiking pace, whatever, and you just say, see you up trail kind of thing, and then you see them 3 days later, and technically it's your second time meeting, but you're so
Yeah.
excited because it's a familiar face.
Nice.
You haven't seen them in a while. It's just that excitement to just see someone, and you kind of lose that when you're in the same area all the time with someone,
Mm.
stuff like that. But yeah, the connections are, and you get to really really know the person, because your status in life doesn't really matter out here. And I mean, sometimes you eventually are like, so what do you do in real life?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But then it's just kind of like interesting, it just kind of adds to what you know about them.
What's the
Yeah.
average age? I mean,
Yeah.
you're young, but like, have you seen all walks of life and
Oh yeah. It's kind of interesting. It would be like pockets. So I'd be like, oh, it's majority 30-year-olds, or oh, it's majority 75-year-olds.
wow.
Um, but I think the youngest person I met that was through hiking, he was 19, just graduated high school. And then the oldest person I met, I think was 75, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 70s. I met quite a few. So I guess the majority is like retirees, but then also there's a good amount of like 30-year-olds, or like some people just like transition people going through a transition. Maybe a lot of people like unhappy in their jobs and just trying to figure out life. So they're
Yeah. What the
through
next step
hiking.
is.
Yeah, next step. Yeah.
Well, there is something about being on the trail and the
Mhm.
clarity that
Oh,
that
definitely.
comes with it because you're there. I mean, the thoughts that you can have that, you can definitely search your heart. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it. That's what I love about being on the trail. What has been like your biggest inner transition, like or transformation that maybe you've had on like this aha moment about you and your life and who it is that you want to be or where you want to go from here?
Yeah, I would say I was hiking. I don't remember. I think I was in Vermont. And I was kind of struggling. So one of my bigger struggles was like I kept wanting to plan something for after the trail. And it was like, I realized when in life, if I was going through a rough patch or struggling mentally, struggling physically, anything, to get out of that present pain, I would immediately just start planning something for the future. And that was kind of my like coping with
Mm.
that. But like, I planned this trail and I didn't plan for anything after the trail, kind of on purpose, just and on purposely, then it was difficult because I didn't know what I was going to do after the trail, and I don't even know when I was going to finish. So like in Vermont, when it started raining all the time, and or when my body was just exhausted, all anything, any pain or struggle moment, I would like my mind would immediately like start trying to plan something or think of the future. But I was so to force myself into the present, I suppose, then afforded me to really just enjoy and think of who I am in the present. And like you said, I started thinking of how I was going to live after the trail, not necessarily what I was going to do after the
Yeah,
trail. And that is a pretty like it's a big distinction once you actually
sure
start
it is.
thinking about it.
Sure.
And so I guess my biggest transformation has just internally been just realizing and really like understanding that out here I'm just someone. There's no label on me. There's no role that I'm in. And I'm just someone existing kind of. And that has been kind of the biggest I don't know if that's transformation, but just like
Peaceful.
freeing, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, peaceful.
Like
Yeah.
you feel, yeah, there's a piece to that of,
Hmm.
being confident and strong in who you are created to be. And I think, yeah, that's a pretty big transformation for sure.
Yeah.
You have been my teacher today. Like, seriously, some of the things that you have said and shared, I know that's a swift like kick that I need as well. And I
Hmm.
can relate to so many of your stories. And I just want to thank you for sharing your heart. I
Yeah.
do want to ask you a couple questions real quick
Hmm.
and just whatever comes, to your mind. And definitely, we'll end on this. Okay. So what was your favorite section so far? What is your section so far?
Okay. I would say the whites, New Hampshire.
Yeah. Without,
Hmm.
where are you now? I mean, we didn't even go over that. Where are you? You're heading south to Springer
Yes.
Mountain. Where,
Yes.
how many more miles do you have?
So I have a little less than 700 miles left.
Oh my
So I'm
gosh,
in Virginia area. Yeah.
which is a long section.
Yes, it is. It's a
Yeah.
quarter of the trail, if anyone's wondering.
No, yeah, that's huge. What was the most
Yeah.
challenging part?
Definitely putting cold, wet clothes back on in the morning. I
Oh my
felt my
God.
brain grow a little bit.
Yeah, that would be tough. Yeah, that would be tough this time. What's the number one gear what's a must have on the trail?
Ooh, camp
You can't live
shoes.
without camp shoes.
Uh-huh. I lost my camp shoes and yeah, definitely a must.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because my next question was how many shoes have you gone through?
Oh, yes. So camp shoes too. And then shoes, like hiking shoes. This
Yeah.
is my third pair. The first pair didn't fit me right at all. So I only had those for until New York, from PA to New York. And then I wore my second pair from New York to Katahdin. And then I'm on my third pair.
There. Oh my God. Do you think you'll finish with these?
I think I'll need one more.
One more? Oh
One
my,
more pair. Yeah.
this is awesome. Seriously. I cannot thank you enough. I know you've got me fired up thinking about just that next step and something. One thing, Rob and I did a section in Virginia
Okay. Yeah.
that probably your age. We had our dog, we got, the backpacks, which is so
Yeah.
crazy. They were super heavy back then. Uh,
Yeah.
how they've like changed. But our
Hmm.
dog Scoob, she had her own pack, carried her own food, and we thought, okay, we're
Oh.
doing a section hike for a week. Girl,
Yeah.
I didn't even last. I don't even know if we lasted 4 days. The very
Oh.
first day we parked and straight uphill, which that's okay.
Hmm.
I'm up for challenges. But then it started raining on day one, an hour into it.
Oh.
It was
Yeah.
not on the radar. I mean, it was one of those fluke things. So of course,
Hmm.
everything was like sopping wet from,
Hmm.
and I remember being in that tent, and of course we didn't have a waterproof tent. Uh,
No. Yeah.
Like this was just the most horrible thing. Like, what were we thinking? But it was one of those memories that we still talk about today. And to think that we're now backpacking and we just love every aspect of it. So yeah, I know it's fun. I know you're doing hard things. And I just love that you're finding yourself out there and moving forward and living differently. And I think that's
Hmm.
what fires me up so much is that you're doing your thing and it's just good. So thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Guys, before we wrap this up, obviously, there is something about getting outdoors, unplugging, and spending time in nature. So unleash your inner adventure while not rushing through life. The Fall Trailblazer Challenge is starting October 1st. Join us, get the swag, get outdoors, and hit the trails. And if you're wanting more fire in your day, you can join our Just Breathe Facebook group. Join us on the adventure of a lifetime. We're heading to Patagonia in March of 2024. We are taking a 5-day trek in the #1 national park in the world, the crown jewel of Patagonia, Torres del Paine. And there's just a couple spots that remain. So go to jillallencoaching.com. We would love to have you with us. Be sure to listen in next time as we will continue to add some fire to your day. As the Hike, Live, Explore series will keep going, we have another special guest with an incredible story, one that will inspire you to make a shift in your life and will for sure encourage you to unplug. Super excited for the next chat. Thanks so much for joining us today. I pray that we filled your heart with joy. If you could let us know before hopping off here, that would be incredible. Subscribe, share this episode link on your social media if you felt encouraged or inspired, as we all know someone that can benefit. And I would love it if you would give some feedback and a review as well. Talk with you next time. Be fit, be fierce, be unstoppable. See ya.